Hi, my name is Ed Minger. I'm the only independent asking for your vote for Secretary of State. My primary motivation in that is to overhaul our elections. They're in desperate need of an upgrade. And one of the big challenges and problems we have pick one preference voting, okay? And that's not how most decisions are made in our daily life, okay? I'm not gonna go through this and pick fights with parties and people and special interests, but I'm gonna try to lay out this case in a way that is understandable to everybody. If you already kind of understand approval voting, I'm asking for your vote right off the bat. I wanna implement this system. I refuse to purchase advertising to sway people. So we're going to have credibility if we can win that way, to turn around and ask your legislators to make some pretty serious changes to make our elections more representative of everybody. And that doesn't mean removing people's seat at the table that already have it, okay? Whether that's business associations or unions or social causes, all those folks still get a seat at the table. They just don't buy it. They just don't purchase it by buying advertising for candidates. So that's why I'm refusing to purchase advertising. And then turn around, limit expenditures, implement approval voting, and have a more representative election system is going to mean we have a more representative government system. If you really get politics, if you understand government, if you understand things pretty quick, because it's a hobby of yours to pay attention to these things, in this YouTube video, you can actually speed it up. If you've ever done this before, you go to the settings down at the bottom of the video, and you can make this play faster. So you'll still hear the spiel and the explanation, but you'll probably process it quicker. I'm going to be going at a pace that's like, if this is brand new for folks, okay? They deserve to be in this process too. So they deserve a video like this one, where I've attempted anyway, to break down the problems I have with pick one preference voting and the problems I hope to solve if we as a group can come together and fix our elections with things like approval voting. Sweet. With no further explanation of what's going to happen here, let's try to move forward. Cool. I will be moving here, taking off these headphones. Sweet. Okay, I'm just going to be up here talking about this slideshow. All right, cool. There are problems with standard voting. Your vote is your choice, and that's a good thing. I'm glad we have a republic where we're able to have input. But how do we make our choice? That's kind of where the flaw lies. We usually ask ourselves a few basic questions whenever we're deciding who to vote for. One of which is who's likely to get elected, who's going to win. Okay, you want to pick somebody in the primary who's going to go to the general election and be victorious. Okay, you're also going to ask who's going to fight for your major priorities, things that you strongly believe in. Who's got your back in that? Unless, of course, that person isn't likely to win in the general election, then you wouldn't want to waste your vote. So you're going to go to whoever's in the party that's probably going to, do some of what you like. You might want to know who seems to be a decent person. You want somebody that's like a good human, okay? Unless the good human's not likely to win in the general election, then you're going to probably shift your vote, not wanting to waste it, and you're going to go to who's going to win in the general election. Who seems like they can work collaboratively? Who can work with other people? Who can reach across to different ideas? Who can listen to a lot of different information and swirl it around and say, oh, here's a nice compromise. You guys, is that good enough? Thanks for giving up a little bit. Okay, cool. You want somebody that can do that, but not if they're not going to win in the general election. So you're going to then shift your vote to whoever's likely to win in the general election. And the last one, who has some good ideas, something new, something fresh, like approval voting. And you are going to say, I really like that person. Unless they're not going to win in the general election. Then we don't want them to be top two. We want somebody that can win in the general election and hopefully also check a couple of these boxes. Sweet. In approval voting, you get to do this. Select all that you approve of. It's awesome. So your vote's still your choice. And these things are still probably things you will consider, but you're going to get to consider all of your priorities. Your vote will reflect your choices. If I were to say, what do you want for lunch? You were maybe thinking a burrito sounds good, or maybe some pho, or maybe some pizza. Whatever sounds good to you, you might have a list of I would approve of any of these things for lunch, but there's a couple things I just don't want. That's how approval voting works. So you might get pizza, you might get pho, you might get a burrito, but if you're cool with all those three options, why would we limit you? You're gonna be like, what's closest? I'm hungry, okay? Sweet. You are no longer going to have to worry about wasting a vote because of who's going to win in the general election. You get to check all the boxes you approve of. And where there's overlap, where there's a lot of people approving of the winner, that's going to be your winner. Somebody that can broadly appeal to folks. So now you get to really decide what's important to you. Who's going to fight for your priorities? Check the little box. Who seems to be a decent person? They might not agree with you on everything, but they might be such a decent person. You're like, I trust they're not going to, besmirch the name of the office. Okay. Who seems like they can work with others? Who can collaborate? I'll check a little box. Who seems like a good collaborator? We disagree on a couple of things, but I approve. And who has good ideas? There might be somebody running with just one good idea. You'll see in a little bit. And you might be like, I really like that idea. I approve. Cool. Here's how it looks. Your new ballot looks just like this, but with a slight twist. Instructions. Select all who you approve of. You still have option A, B, C, D, option A, Ed Minger, option F. And if you're running for governor, if you're voting for governor, you're going to have 37 options. Happy research. Okay, cool. So you check all you approve of. Any questions? No questions? Okay, cool. This is called a bell curve. And most people, the highest part of the bell curve represents most people. That's like average territory. So imagine we were doing, instead of extreme left politics and extreme right politics, you could be looking at height. Okay, you have extremely tall people and then folks on the exact opposite end, but you don't have a lot of people on those edges. Most people fall in the average, the highest part of the bell curve. It's the same thing with politics. Most folks are independent, or they lean a little bit one way or another, or they see the value in, let's say, low taxes and government not being horribly wasteful, but also the value in having some decent social programs that help folks out when they need help. Most people can look at those two ideas and say, those don't suck. Like, yeah, let's do that. Sweet. So that's where most of us land. But what this does is it bridges the left, the right, and the center in a couple of ways. The first one is if you can appeal to lots of independents and take a couple Democrats with you and take a couple Republicans with you, and get elected that way, it's possible now, because you don't have to be perfectly in line with your party or perfectly in line with the other party, because there's more options and nobody's wasting a vote to go with the more electable person from your party. Okay, they're just checking off the box of, I approve of this person because they seem reasonable. Okay, so those folks are probably going to be rewarded by winning some elections, which would be nice. Second thing is, let's say you only have one issue. You have a candidate that says, we must fix the environment yesterday. And that's it. That's all they're running on. Let's say you have another person that says, we must reform taxes and have a fair tax in Washington. That would be considered kind of the right, okay? And they're so passionate about the one idea. What are we going to do? Oh, well, they're not likely to win in the general election, so we couldn't possibly vote for them in the primary, because they're just going to show up as 2% of people who care about the environment. But that's not true. 2% of people want tax reform, but that's not true. What happens with approval voting? Oops, down there at the bottom. The environmentalist or the fair tax candidate, just with the one issue, might get 38% approval, which means those winners we just talked about, the centrists, have to listen, and they have good data that says, okay, people, 38% of people approve of reforming taxes or doing something about the environment. And that's going to inform the decision-making that happens by the people that win elections, because they don't want to continue to kick the can down the road and not get stuff done, because sooner or later, one of those extreme candidates with that one idea is going to be really approved of and win. Okay, so they have to be accountable to the ideas on the far ends of the bell curve, but still appeal to lots of people in the middle. It's crazy. That would be like how leaders should lead. Okay, great. Here's the effect on parties. By the way, it's not politicians' fault that they can't play these games, or that they have to play these games, and that approval voting is not a thing. And it's nobody's fault. It just is what it is, right? I think most people that are already elected want to lead in the way that I'm describing. It's just they have people to please, and that's in the slideshow called Money in Politics. Okay, effects on parties. Folks that have been yearning for a third party, chill out, calm down. It's too much work. You don't need to get that organized and raise that money and convince people that you're legit. We're just going to put you on the ballot if you can get approved of by a lot of folks. 2, keeps the parties accountable, flexible, and inclusive to new ideas. So just as I described it before, you could lose to an independent. You could lose to the Green Party. You could lose to a Libertarian. You could lose to a progressive. All of a sudden, people not feeling like they're wasting a vote, if they start checking their actual preferences off, the parties could lose to outsiders. So they better start listening and representing broader groups of folks, not the 20 or 30% that consider themselves Democrats and Democrats do everything right. Even Democrats that consider themselves Democrats would say Democrats don't always do things right. Even Republicans that consider themselves Republicans would look at the Republicans and say, we don't always get it right. Okay, we all agree that this is true. This is going to keep folks accountable and doing the most good for the most number of people. Awesome. From a voter's perspective, your new ballot has some old favorites on it, just to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Select all you approve of. You might have decent, slight conservative, a decent, slight liberal, somebody that agrees with you a lot, but they're kind of a jerk, someone that has just one amazing idea, but not much else. And then Clinton and Trump. Cool. Let's see how this shakes out. The results might look like this. Who approved of each? 58% of people approved of a decent, slight conservative. 58% of people approved of a decent, slight liberal. It's crazy. And 49% also agreed with the person that you agree with a lot, but they're kind of rude. So they only got 49%. And then that person with the amazing idea, and that was about it. 48% liked that idea so much, they're like, put them in office. Maybe they'll come up with something else. Clinton, 61%. Trump, 61%. These are our winners. These are our top two that you're going to get to choose from in the general election. But at least we've kept the winners on track. Okay, so these two folks that barely won, and let's just pretend these names don't represent Clinton and Trump. Now they represent somebody running to be a state legislator, because that's probably how that'll actually end up working. This will keep the winners on the right track. The lessons after the election are this. That word decent pops up. The decent slight conservative and the decent slight liberal was really close to winning. They were really close to unseating the expected Clinton or Trump victor because we were able to approve of them. The person that was kind of rude with 49%, Clinton and Trump, now that they have moved on, they get to see kind of rude is not a benefit. You don't want to do that. So let's focus on the decent part. And now both of these folks that might be likely to win, they see that one person with that one amazing idea that was able to get 48% of the vote just based on that one idea. And they have to say, we should probably steal that idea. Like, obviously, we need to appeal to those people or they won't approve of us in the next election. Approval voting. Fantastic. The best news of all, that was just the primary. The general election is going to be top 3 to 5. Top 3 to 5 folks in the primary move on, and you still get to use approval voting. So now we have a decent slight conservative versus a decent slight liberal versus Clinton versus Trump, and all of them had to pay attention to that person that was kind of rude and lost because of it. And they all have to look at that person with the one good idea and steal that one good idea, bring it into their party, bring it into their platform, bring it into their leadership. This is approval voting. I approve of approval voting, and I hope you do too. What's going to happen? Candidates with good attitude, good approach, and skills that can appeal to a lot of people, they're going to win. And innovative ideas from the far ends of the bell curve, the middle's going to adopt those ideas because they're going to see through approval voting what's catching on and what people really want. So the major parties are kind of, as it says here, a little slow to do cool stuff. With approval voting, they're going to speed that up and they're going to adopt from both ends of things, and they are going to have to govern to the best of their ability for everybody, or they're going to lose their job, as it should be. Cool. Your vote reflects your true preferences. Your vote reflects your true preferences. You're never going to have to give up a vote. Speaking of your true preferences, before I let you go, you're going to see on the side a link to this document. I want you to do research and tell the government how to work. I want you, let's say that one more time, I want you to do your own research and tell the government how to work, not just in voting season. So, Secretary of State 2020, voting methods, you can read about the goals of why we want to do this. But if you like approval voting, or if you don't like approval voting, I want to get your feedback. If you like something called ranked choice voting, or don't like ranked choice voting, I want your feedback. If you have other alternatives for different ways that we can achieve the goals that we have, I want your feedback. Anybody with these links can edit these documents. Please keep other people's contributions intact and demonstrate respect by only posting appropriate information. So let's see what this looks like. We'll go to ranked choice voting in the interest of fairness. Both of the documents, or all 3 of those first documents, look the same. Ranked choice voting doesn't satisfy these 3 goals. Go ahead and read through those. And then find a source that tells me why ranked choice voting is good or better than approval voting, or what the intended outcome is. I'm afraid this is my bias and my concern, and why I've settled on approval voting. I'm concerned that we're still going to have the problem of ranking our choices, and parties and groups of folks coming together to say we all need to make sure that we all put number one on a certain Democrat or a certain Republican. Okay, and if that's still happening, if you're still giving up your vote for somebody you actually like, if you're still ranking them number one because you know that if they count number one, then it's over and your person wins. They won't even look at your number two if you can just coordinate around the number one, right? So if you don't get ranked choice voting, none of that makes sense. So I try to say it kind of fast. But those that do understand it, do some research and tell me why it's better. Tell me why I'm wrong. Cool. And the rebuttal source. If somebody sees something over here on the left, a summary and a source, and you're like, I got a better source and I got a better summary that goes against what this person shared, go ahead and put it right here. There's way cleaner ways to do this. But I'm a teacher and I understand Google Docs, so I did it this way. I also have created this, and this is kind of funny. This is a vote on votes. I did a practice round. It's Jim. I don't know who Jim is, but I was Jim for a minute. A vote on voting methods. Below, you're asked to vote on the same 4 options, but in multiple ways. Follow the instructions carefully for each question. Ed Minger, that's me. For Secretary of State, wants to see what you want as far as your voting methods, but also I want to get a little data on whether the method of voting drastically changes the outcome of the vote, if that makes sense. So you put your name here. This will not collect any personal information from you. Cool. Put your name here. First name is fine. Are you an eligible voter? Yes, no. This is the honor system. Don't fill this out a bunch of times. What county are you in? So we know where in the state people do or don't like this. Which voting method do you prefer? So the same question shows up 3 different times. First one, you only get to pick one preference. Okay, just pick one. So our current voting method, top 2, and you pick one candidate. Approval voting for more than 2 choices. Ranked choice voting for more than 2 choices, or another method that you know about. If you do that, you're gonna have to type it in here, but maybe we'll learn something from it. Then you get to use approval voting to decide what you approve of. So this one is select all that you like. What happens if I select all 4? I basically nullified my vote. Don't do that. Don't pick all 4. Pick less than all of the options. Cool. And this one, you're going to have to be careful because I couldn't control this. Maybe there's a way, but I didn't know how. This would be ranked choice. Which voting method do you prefer? Ranked choice voting for 2 or more options. That would be first place. It's possible to make all 4 of these first place. Didn't know how to control that. But we're in Washington State, so if as this campaign moves on, there's going to be some tech expert that steps out and says, I can just do that for you in a really efficient way. You don't have to use Google Docs. And I'm like, sweet, thanks. I'm not going to pay you, but I appreciate the work. Awesome. So then you can do ranked choice voting and practice that. Sweet. I think that last little section is what's going to make this video really long, but it's fine. Thanks for your time, and happy voting on August 4th.